Lila Windrider woke choking, her throat raw before her eyes even opened. Smoke pressed low across the ceiling, thick and greasy, and orange light pulsed through the nursery doorway like a predator breathing. For one stunned heartbeat, she thought a lantern had tipped. Then she heard laughter in the courtyard below, heard someone shout, "Burn it all!" And the world snapped into focus. Her nesting room was on fire. Her room. Her pup's room. She rolled from bed, belly heavy as stone, and hit the floor barefoot. Splinters bit her palms. The contraction knifed across her spine, sharp, warning, unwelcome. Flames climbed the hand-carved cradle first, licking the silver wolf etched along its rail. The moonstone mobile she had hung 3 nights ago cracked one bead at a time with tiny popping cries that sounded horribly alive. Every blanket she had stitched during winter patrol, every rabbit plush, every soft shirt folded for afterbirth and milk turned black at the edges. Heat slammed into her face. She lunged for the cradle anyway, wrapped hands around the side, and yanked. Pain shot through her fingers as varnish blistered under her skin. The cradle legs caught, splintered, and collapsed in sparks. She staggered to the balcony doors and shoved them open with her shoulder. Night air struck, cold and clean, but below her the courtyard seethed with bodies. Her pack had gathered in a ring around the burning wing, faces lit amber, eyes blank. No one moved toward the water pumps. No one shifted to wolf form. No one looked ashamed. Elder Heston stood at the center with his staff and watched her as if she were the blaze itself. Beside him, Alistair Thornwood leaned against a column, immaculate in leather, and smiled when she met his gaze. His mouth curved. Lila gripped the charred railing until her nails tore. "Why are you standing there?" she screamed. "Help me. My pup is due tomorrow." A murmur rippled, then died. Alistair answered instead, voice carrying with practiced sorrow. "You should have thought of that before opening your legs to Stonefang's spies. The council has seen your letters." Elder Mara lifted a parchment and read aloud forged orders in Lila's name, maps she had never touched, routes she had never betrayed. When Lila denied every line, Heston struck his staff once. "Cleansing exile, effective now. The den is cleansed. Remove her before dawn." Someone from the crowd yelled, "Whore!" Another shouted, "Burn the liar with her nest." Lila searched faces she had eaten beside, hunted beside, bled beside. Her Aunt Bryn with crossed arms, midwife Sarah looking at the ground, 2 warriors she had patched after battle now staring through her. A second contraction ripped through her belly hard enough to bend her double. Fluid warmth trickled down her thigh, and terror flashed bright. Too early, she told herself. Not now, not here. She clutched the doorframe and forced air into shaking lungs while smoke and accusation braided into a single suffocating rope. Alistair climbed the stair to her landing with 2 guards at his back, stepping over embers without hurry. Their bond mark had faded months ago when she rejected him, but he touched the scar on his wrist like a badge anyway. "Do not make this ugly, Lila," he said softly. "Come quietly, sign the confession, and perhaps the council allows your bastard to survive foster claim." She bared her teeth. "You forged everything." He tilted his head. "Truth is what the pack accepts." He reached for her arm. She jerked away, and his fingers closed on empty smoke and air. Heston lifted his staff again. "By council authority, detain her until moonrise purification." The guards advanced. Lila backed into the smoky hallway, mind racing through outcomes she had avoided naming all week. Purification meant herbs that stopped labor, chains that forced obedience, and if the pup lived, Alistair could invoke old mate right custody. She had treated survivors of that right. She knew how many did not survive. A timber beam crashed beside her, spraying sparks. Fire had eaten through the nursery wall and opened an exit into the loft. Behind her, Alistair said, "Run. We hunt what is ours." Lila did run, but not for him. She crawled through the broken wall into the loft, dropped to her knees, and dragged aside a grain bin where she had hidden a satchel. Inside were three things she had sworn never to need: her healer kit, the iron key to the stables, and the ledger where she copied every order Alistair routed through supply. Proof, if anyone valued proof. Another contraction clenched. She bit her knuckles to silence the cry, then tied the satchel crosswise over her chest. If she stayed, they would erase her. If she fled, she could testify. She dropped from the loft ladder into the alley and nearly fell when another cramp seized her hips. Ash coated the stones. Bells began tolling from the watchtower, not for fire, but for fugitive. Wolves peeled from shadows as the alarm spread. Lila forced herself into a limping jog, one palm under her belly, one against the wall for balance. At the stable door, she jammed the iron key with fingers, missed twice, cursed, and got it turned. Inside, horses screamed at the smoke. She chose a dun mare saddled for patrol, sliced the tether rope, and hauled herself up. A guard burst into the stable aisle as she kicked the mare toward the side gate. Lila, stop. You are under council order. It was Brennan, a young guard she had sparred with as a girl. His face looked sick. She yanked a pitchfork down behind her, jamming it through the gate handles as he reached them. Splintering wood bought her breaths. She drove heels into the mare and shot into pine dark beyond the wall. Night wind tore smoke from her hair. Behind, horns answered horns. Ahead, the river path twisted north toward the Royal Road, the only judgment above cruelty. She rode until stars blurred and the mare foamed at the neck. Twice she slid off to retch beside the trail. Once she doubled over behind a boulder while a contraction gripped and released like an iron fist. Blood Moon Eve painted the clouds rust red. Her wolf prowled frantic beneath her skin, urging den, safety, surrender. Lila ignored it. Alistair owned the border alphas. Appeals to courts would vanish by noon. Only one authority could stay a cleansing exile: Cyrus Duskwalker, Alpha King, butcher of traitors, breaker of rebellions. If he killed her, least he would hear her first. Dawn bled over the eastern ridge as palace walls rose from mist like carved cliffs. Duskwalker Keep was less a home than a fortress city. Black stone veined with silver wards, banners snapping from towers where sentries in wolfskin cloaks watched every approach. Lila swayed in the saddle, numb from cold and pain. Her dress was stiff with smoke and sweat. Her braid had come loose into soot strands. When the gate guards lowered spears, the mare stopped and trembled. "State your rank and business," guard barked. Lila lifted her chin. "Exiled Luna. Sanctuary petition. I need audience immediately inside." The guards exchanged a look that said, "Mad female, trouble, delay." The taller one tapped a slate hanging from his belt. "Petitions are filed at midday with the clerk. You wait with traitors." Lila stared at him until his scent shifted from annoyance to unease. "I will not wait. I am in labor," she said, each word clipped between breaths. "And my pack has condemned me without trial. Take me to your king." He gave a laugh. "The Alpha King does not receive strangers on his stones." "Then carry me to him," she snapped. "But say Cyrus Duskwalker denied sanctuary." That name did it. The guards stiffened, murmured to each other, then signaled the inner wall. Minutes stretched while Lila sat fighting tremors, nails dug into the saddle horns so hard her fingers cramped. Another contraction hit, longer this time, and she folded forward with a low, involuntary sound she hated. A female captain in bronze armor strode out with two healers trailing. "Dismount," she ordered. "We examine you before audience." "No." Lila clung tighter. "If you knock me out or cage me, I lose my voice. I speak to the king awake, or I die at this gate. Choose." The captain studied her a long moment, nostrils flaring as if weighing lies against blood and fear. Finally, she jerked her chin. Open first passage. No restraints. 2 guards only. The gates groaned apart. Lila rode through echoing tunnels lined with torch niches and old battle murals where kings stood over kneeling enemies. Courtiers paused to stare as she passed. A smoke-stained she-wolf on a lathered mare, belly round, eyes feral. At a central courtyard fountain, she slid from the saddle and collapsed. A healer reached out. She flinched. No herbs, she warned. Nothing unless I see him. They took her up 3 flights and along a corridor scented cedar, ink, and rain-soaked stone. Outside a carved iron door, the captain halted. His Majesty is in war council. You will kneel, speak when asked, and keep your hands visible. Lila laughed once, bitter and breathless. I crossed 3 territories in labor for justice. I do not kneel to anyone who has not earned it. The captain's mouth thinned, but she opened the door anyway. Voices spilled out, with strategy. Lila stepped over the threshold, legs shaking, and felt every gaze in the room land like thrown knives. At the far end of a long table stood Cyrus Duskwalker, one hand braced on a spread of border maps, the other stained with ink. He looked younger than rumor and far more dangerous. Dark hair tied at the nape, shoulders broad under a simple gray tunic, power coiled quiet rather than displayed. 3 generals and 2 advisors turned toward her with open disapproval. Cyrus did not. He kept studying the map until she forced out, "Lila Windrider seeks hearing under sanctuary law." Then he lifted his head. Storm eyes locked on hers and the air in her lungs vanished. Heat detonated through her chest so violently she grabbed the nearest chair to stay upright. Her wolf surged forward, not in panic but in startled reverence, then bowed inside her bones to a scent that struck like lightning. Cedar after rain, iron, night wind over cliffs. Across the table, Cyrus went utterly still. Ink dripped from his fingers onto the map, unnoticed. His pupils blew wide. Every male in the room stiffened, sensing the shift, and Cyrus's voice came out rough. Out. All of you. Now. Chairs scraped, boots retreated. Lila and Cyrus stared, bound by something neither could deny. The latch clicked behind the last retreating guard, and silence hit like a slammed door. Not true silence. There was the hiss of rain against arrow slits, the crackle from the hearth, Lila's own ragged breathing. But the room had emptied of witnesses, and that changed everything. Cyrus did not move for 3 long heartbeats. His storm eyes held hers as if looking away might break something sacred and violent all at once. Then his chest rose in a sharp, involuntary inhale. Gold flashed through his irises, gone and back again, wolf light surfacing under restraint. His hand tightened on the table edge until old oak groaned. Lila felt the same surge answer inside her, heat rolling up from belly to throat, electricity licking down her spine, a pull so physical she swayed toward him before her fear snapped a leash around it. Her wolf pressed forward, not timid, not confused, just certain in a way Lila had never trusted certainty. No, she thought wildly. No, not now, not him. Another contraction clenched low and hard, tearing a sound from her teeth. She gripped the chair back until her knuckles blanched. Sweat cooled on her neck in the draft. Beneath smoke and blood and panic, that scent kept wrapping around her. Cedar, rain, iron, stormlight, familiar to a part of her she had never met before. It felt like standing barefoot on high rock in lightning weather. Terrifying, magnificent, one wrong step from ruin. Cyrus came around the war table slowly, palms open, movements deliberate enough to read as a choice, not predatory, not claiming. Every instinct in her body mapped threat anyway. She had been hunted by smiling men less than a night ago. "Lila Windrider," he said, voice roughened at the edges. Not king voice, not court voice, just hers and his in a locked room. You came for judgment. She swallowed, tasted ash. I came for sanctuary law. You'll get truth first. His jaw flexed. Mine, yours, the court's. No one will silence you in my keep. The words should have sounded like strategy. They sounded like oath. He stopped 2 arm lengths away and inhaled again, as if her pain was a scent he could track. You're in labor. I said that at your gate. I heard. A flicker of anger crossed his face, not at her. Why are you still standing? Because if I sit, someone cages me. Her laugh came out raw. If I lie down, they dose me. If I sleep, I wake in chains. His expression changed then, some old violence rising cold behind his eyes. Who? Lila almost answered with all the names at once. Heston, Mara, Sarah looking away, Bryn crossing her arms, Alistair smiling while flames ate her nursery. Instead, she said, my pack council sentenced me to cleansing exile before dawn. They burned my nesting room in front of everyone. They forged letters, orders, maps tying me to Stonefang, and nobody asked for proof. Cyrus's nostrils flared. And Alistair Thornwood? Demanded confession. Threatened foster claim. She lifted her chin despite the tremor in it. Our bond mark faded months ago when I rejected him. He touched the scar like I still belonged to him. Something in Cyrus's shoulders went rigid, then very still. You do not belong to anyone. The bond pulsed at that, a hot thread tightening between sternum and sternum. Lila hated that her body believed him faster than her mind did. She took one step back. Don't. Her voice shook harder than she wanted. Don't use this. She gestured between them, unable to name the detonated thing, to make me grateful or obedient. His eyes widened briefly, then narrowed in concentration as if placing each response with care. I won't touch you without permission. I won't invoke rank to force trust. I won't lock you in a guest wing. You keep your satchel, your evidence, and your voice. If you need to leave this room, 2 guards only, female captain in command. The precision of it startled her. Those were not placating promises, they were immediate orders already forming. A contraction knifed through her again, stronger, radiating into her hips. She folded around it, palms braced on her thighs, breath shuddering. This one did not pass quickly. The room blurred at the edges. Before panic could crest, Cyrus dropped to one knee an arm's length away, still not touching. A king, kneeling on stone because she could not stay upright. Look at me, he said quietly. She did, because command and gentleness had braided into one impossible tone. Gold rimmed his pupils again. Her wolf went abruptly still, listening. Breathe in for 4, he murmured. Hold, out for 6. Again. She followed because counting gave pain corners. In, hold, out. Her heartbeat stopped trying to climb out of her throat. When the contraction ebbed, she nearly sagged with relief. Better? He asked. Temporary, she said. Temporary is enough for 1 minute at a time. His hand lifted halfway, paused. May I? She tracked his fingers, calloused, ink-stained. Where? Your wrist. Pulse check only. She nodded once. His touch was warm and careful, no possessive curl, just 2 fingers at her pulse counting. The mate bond flared where skin met skin, a bright arc that shot to her chest. Cyrus shut his eyes briefly like the sensation hit him just as hard. Fast, he said softly, releasing her. From exertion, smoke, labor. Not collapse. Have you had bleeding beyond show? Streaking, no flood. Water broken? Not fully, trickling since the courtyard. He absorbed each answer with battlefield focus. Any herbs? Sedatives? Forced tonics? No. Good. He stood in one smooth motion and crossed to the door, opening it before she could flinch at another closed latch. "Captain." The female officer appeared at once, spine straight. "Your Majesty." "Seal the south courtyard workshop. Wake master carpenters, nursery stewards, scent trackers, and both palace midwives." His gaze cut back to Lila as he spoke, anchoring orders to her reality. "No one touches Lady Windrider without her consent. No herbs unless she asks or I authorize in her hearing. Record that." The captain blinked once at the title, then snapped, "Yes, sire." "And send for warm water, broth, fresh linen, and clean boots. Not a chamber assignment. We go now." When the captain vanished, Lila stared. "Go where?" "Somewhere no one can corner you while you tell me exactly what was taken." His mouth set, fierce and controlled. "If fire stole your nursery, we make it answer before sunrise." Shock washed through her so fast it felt like vertigo. "You can't rebuild a life in a night." "No," he said. "But I can rebuild a room. Sometimes that is where life starts again." He offered his forearm instead of his hand, formal and easy to refuse. Lila hesitated, then hooked her fingers over muscle and cloth, ready to yank free. The moment she touched him, heat threaded up her arm and settled. Not burning this time, just present. They moved through side corridors instead of grand halls. Cyrus kept half a step ahead, not dragging, not hurting, clearing corners with a glance that made servants flatten against walls. The two healers met them at a stair landing with satchels and cautious faces. Lila recognized one from the gate. The other was older, silver-braided, eyes direct. "I am Healer Tamsin," the older woman said. "This is Healer Rook. We monitor only unless you request intervention." Lila searched both scents for deceit and found nerves, concern, no sharp metallic tang of compulsion herbs. "No labor stoppers," she said. "Not in this keep," Tamsin replied, offended on principle. "Not ever." Rain had begun in earnest when they stepped into the sealed south courtyard. High stone walls blocked wind. Lanterns flared under awnings. Workers arrived at a run pulling carts of timber, paint boxes, bolts of cloth. Cyrus did not bark like a tyrant. He pointed, asked, reassigned, compressing chaos into intent. "Describe everything," he told Lila, turning fully toward her as if a room mattered more than border wars. She laughed once, brittle. "You're serious." "Pain remembers details. Speak them before they blur." So she did, at first haltingly, then in a rush she could not stop. The nursery ceiling had deep blue paint and hand-dotted constellations, not perfect circles, because she used the rounded end of a nail. The rocking chair had a scar down one arm where a patrol knife slipped while she carved moons. The cradle rail carried a silver wolf at the right corner, one ear chipped because she sneezed while whittling. Shelves sat lower than standard because she wanted to reach them after birth without straining stitches. Window latch stuck unless lifted first. Floorboard by the hearth creaked on winter nights. She had woven dried lavender into blanket hems. She wanted a washstand near the door, and hooks for sling wraps, and a bowl for warmed stones to ease afterpains. Craftsmen wrote every word. Scent trackers took a char sample from her sleeve and matched oils and varnish notes. A scarred she-wolf from Duskwalker's South Wall Fire Watch logged the lamp oil trace and said she would swear to it before any pack. A painter copied star placement from memory as she pointed with shaking fingers. Midwives measured cradle height against her belly as if she were already carrying the child in arms. It was absurd, impossible, intimate as surgery. At some point, tears started without warning. Not tidy tears. Ugly, furious ones that made her breath hitch. Kindness landed where she had braced for interrogation, and the impact cracked her open. "I can't," she whispered, pressing a fist to her mouth. "I don't know how to survive people being gentle after tonight." Cyrus was beside her before she registered movement, then lowering to both knees on wet stone without a flicker of hesitation. Rain darkened his hair at the temples. The crown was absent. He looked like a man kneeling before a wounded wolf and asking not to be bitten, even if he deserved it. "You don't owe me composure," he said. "I don't owe you anything," she shot back, because fear made claws. His mouth tipped, not offended. "Correct." Another contraction rolled through her, hard enough that her ankles trembled. She swayed. "I hate this. I hate needing anyone." "Then don't need." He slid one hand under her heel, waiting. "Let me offer." She nodded because standing hurt too much for pride. He cupped her swollen ankle with both hands and let warmth seep from his palms, controlled wolf heat, easing the ache that had climbed from arches to calves over miles of riding. The relief was immediate, humiliating, heavenly. Lila closed her eyes. "This is dangerous." "Yes," Cyrus said, thumbs moving in slow circles above bone. "Because your body may trust before your history does." Her laugh broke into a sob. "Do you always sound like that when you terrify people?" "Only when I'm terrified, too." She looked down sharply. He met her gaze without flinching, storm eyes stripped bare. "I have executed liars in this courtyard," he said. "My first instinct is always violence. My mother taught me mercy before she died, and I have been losing the argument with myself ever since. Then you walked into my war room carrying smoke and contractions and demanded justice by name. I am trying not to fail what I recognized." The bond surged, steadier now, like a second pulse. Lila pressed her palm to her belly as the pup shifted. Cyrus tracked the movement and went still. "May I greet your child?" She stared at him for a long, suspended beat. In the distance, a hammer rang. Rain tapped stone. Workers pretended not to watch. "Ask again," she said. "May I touch your belly?" She nodded. His hand settled lightly over the curve, reverent rather than proprietary. Warmth spread through skin and muscle. The pup kicked against his palm with surprising force. Cyrus's expression changed into something fierce and undone. "Hello, little one," he whispered, voice dropping to the intimate register of den walls and midnight promises. "You are expected, not tolerated." Lila's knees nearly gave out for an entirely different reason. Before she could answer, the female captain entered the courtyard at speed, rain beating on bronze armor. "Sire, emergency council petition at the East Chamber. 3 allied alphas arrived unannounced with retinues. They demand immediate surrender of Lady Windrider pending investigation." Cyrus rose in a single fluid movement, the warmth gone from his hands and replaced by cold authority that seemed to alter air pressure. Names: Alpha Garen of Blackroot, Alpha Velk of Pine Hollow, Alpha Sorn of Red Claw. Lila's stomach dropped. Border allies Alistair courted for years. Of course he moved fast. The captain continued, jaw tight. "They brought copies of letters claiming she confessed the child is Thornwood's and admitted espionage. They insist sanctuary was improperly granted and threaten to withdraw war levies if refused." Forged letters already. He had prepared this before the fire cooled. Cyrus held out his arm to Lila again. "Can you walk?" "I can stand," she said through gritted teeth. "Walking is negotiable." "Then negotiate with me." We face them now. She expected him to leave her protected in the courtyard while he handled politics. Instead, he kept her at his side through 3 corridors and up to the East Council chamber, where voices crashed against carved doors like storm surf. 2 guards opened at his approach. The room fell abruptly still. The 3 alphas stood opposite the long oak table, flanked by aides and scribes. Garen was thick-necked and red-bearded. Velk wore polished antler pins. Sorn's smile was all teeth. None bowed to Lila. All stared at her belly first, face second, as if assessing disputed livestock. Elder law tablets lay stacked near the scribes, already open to sanctuary clauses. Good. At least they expected a fight with ink, not just claws. Garen spoke without preamble. Duskwalker, you harbor an accused traitor under labor hysteria and forged urgency. Return her in chains to her lawful pack, pending full investigation. Lila felt Cyrus's wolf rise like thunder behind human skin. You mistake this chamber for your den, he said mildly. Choose your next words better. Velk slapped a parchment down. Signed confession. Witnessed by Thornwood Council seal. She admits sleeping with Stonefang Courier and carrying uncertain blood. Lila barked a disbelieving laugh. That seal can be carved in any market with 2 silver and no conscience. Sorn leaned forward. Silence. She speaks when addressed by ranking males. The old command landed like a slap from years she had tried to outgrow. Before she could answer, Cyrus pulled out the chair at his right hand and looked at her, not them. Sit, he said. Not because she was weak, because it was his right hand, equal height to his own seat, directly in line with every gaze in the room. Murmurs hissed along the walls as she lowered herself carefully, one palm bracing her belly through another tightening contraction. Cyrus remained standing. Garen's lip curled. You place her above allied alphas? I place her under Crown Sanctuary, Cyrus said, which outranks your discomfort. Sorn shoved his chair back and strode around the table before anyone reacted, hand shooting toward Lila's upper arm. We'll escort her ourselves. He never touched her. Cyrus's palm came down on the oak with a crack like split lightning. The tabletop shattered under his hand, fissure racing through polished grain, inkpots leaping, quills scattering. Power rolled out from him in a visible pressure wave that made torches gutter and every wolf in the chamber flinch. Do not, he said, and the king command in his voice dropped men to one knee whether they meant to kneel or not. Lay, a finger, on her. Silence detonated. Sorn froze half-bent, face drained of color, legs trembling under compelled submission. Garen and Velk fought the command and lost, shoulders bowing despite fury. Cyrus straightened slowly, splintered oak under his fingertips. Ancient Sanctuary Law, Tablet 9, Line 14, he said to the chief scribe without looking away from the alphas. Read. The scribe, voice shaking, recited, Any pregnant she-wolf who seeks the crown's protection before moonset cannot be surrendered, traded, or reclaimed absent trial by moon oath, witnessed by neutral pacts and royal record. Continue. Insult, coercion, or physical seizure of one under sanctuary constitutes contempt against the crown and may be prosecuted as treason in times of territorial unrest. Cyrus nodded once. Record my ruling. Lila Windrider remains under royal sanctuary. She will not be returned in chains, by bargain, by threat, or by archaic mate-right claim. Any further attempt to defame, touch, or remove her without consent is treason against this throne. Quills scratched frantically. Lila sat very still, pulse hammering. No one had ever said consent in a council chamber like it was enforceable law. Velk forced himself upright, sweat beading at his temple. You would risk civil fracture for one female and an unproven pup? Cyrus finally sat beside her, close enough that his sleeve brushed hers, a quiet declaration more potent than shouted vows. I will risk war to uphold law, he said. If your peace depends on burning nurseries and forged confessions, it is already fracture. Garen spat on the broken table leg. Thornwood gathers wolves at the border as we speak. He claims you stole his mate and heir. Lila turned toward the alphas, voice calm despite the pain building again in her spine. He burned my nursery the night before my due date. He demanded confession while my den burned. His obsession is possession, not love. Sorn wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, still not meeting Cyrus's eyes. Words. Then we test them under moon oath, Cyrus said. Publicly, with witnesses neither of us appoint. All three alphas stilled at that. Moon oath trials left little room for theatrics. He looked to the scribes. Send summons to neutral pacts. Secure the oath dais for blood moon hearing. Until then, these men remain guests under watch, not prisoners. I will not hand them martyrdom. Then he turned to Lila, voice dropping to something only she and maybe the nearest guard could hear. Can you stay seated through adjournment? She expected to resent the question. Instead, warmth moved through the bond where his forearm touched hers, steadying. Yes, she said, surprised to mean it. If you keep shattering furniture, though, we'll run out by noon. His mouth curved, brief and fierce. I have more tables. For the first time since smoke woke her choking, Lila let a sliver of her guard unclench. Not down, not gone, but lowered enough to breathe around. Outside, thunder rolled over Duskwalker Keep like distant drums, and for once, it did not sound like pursuit. The thunder had barely finished echoing when the chamber doors opened and the female captain stepped in with 6 royal guards at her back. By the king's order, she said, voice clipped, Alpha Garen, Alpha Velk, Alpha Sorn will be escorted to the West Guest barracks. Weapons surrendered, correspondence inspected. Garen's lip curled. You call this hospitality? Cyrus didn't look at him. I call it restraint. The captain gestured. The 3 allied alphas were led out under watch, boots grinding over splintered oak. Quills kept scratching until the doors sealed again. Only then did Lila let her hand leave the edge of the chair. Her palm was damp, fingers cramped from bracing through the last contraction. She reached for her satchel on instinct, grounding herself on leather and the hard corners of the ledger hidden inside. Cyrus turned to the chief scribe. Every parchment received from Thornwood or his proxies comes to me unopened. Double seal the archive. No exceptions. The scribe swallowed. Yes, sire. To the generals, border scouts every half-league from the south road to the marsh cut. I want numbers, insignias, fire kits, healer wagons, all of it. His gaze sharpened. If Thornwood massed wolves only to rattle gates, that is one response. If he brought chains, that is another. One of the generals, a scarred male with a black braid threaded in bronze rings, bowed. We intercepted a runner an hour ago. He carried 5 letters with Thornwood wax. Cyrus held out his hand. Now. The general passed over a wrapped packet tied with twine and stamped with a thorn branch crest. The wax had been broken and reset. Sloppy. Rushed. Lila felt the scent of old ink and cheap pine oil before Cyrus even opened the bundle. Her stomach dropped. Not from labor this time. That oil, she said. He uses it on his desk drawers. Too much. It makes his den smell like resin. Cyrus laid the letters on the table between them. Read with me. She expected him to shield it from her, to decide what she could bear. Instead, he angled every page so she could see first. The first letter was addressed to Alpha Velk and written in a hand meant to be hers, looping, careful, with the same long tails on the Y's she'd learned as a novice scribe. I confess the child is of Thornwood blood. I recant accusations against my counsel. I request return under private rights. Her vision narrowed. No. Breathe, Cyrus said quietly. She shook her head. I never write recant. Not in letters. I write withdraw or correct. He knows that. He forgot because he doesn't hear words. He hears surrender. The second letter was to Elder Mara, begging forgiveness and requesting purification to restore proper mate hierarchy. The third was an unsigned order allegedly from her hand, releasing supply maps to Stonefang scouts. The fourth was a confession intended for the Crown Archive itself. The fifth was worse. A legal memorandum invoking old mate right custody over one unborn heir conceived under prior bond authority. Lila laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. He's filing ownership paperwork. Cyrus's storm eyes lifted from the page to her face, and for a beat, the whole room felt knife-still. He is trying to turn your body into territory. Yes. Her throat burned. That is exactly what he wants. Not me. Possession in front of witnesses. If he can claim me publicly, every she-wolf who rejected a bond becomes negotiable again. The chief scribe made a small, strangled sound. Cyrus folded the letters with deliberate precision. They are forgeries. Obvious to anyone not hunting for an excuse. Obvious doesn't matter if loud enough, Lila said. Another contraction tightened low, hard and relentless. She breathed through her teeth, counting the rhythm Tamsin had drilled into her. He's feeding every fear they already had. Stonefang raids, border famine, weak succession lines. If he can call the child his heir, he ties 3 packs to him in one move. The scarred general spoke. Scouts also report Thornwood banners near the river forks. Maybe 60 wolves by dusk. More trailing. Not an army, Cyrus said. Not yet, the general answered. Danger settled over the room like second weather. Alistair wasn't charging gates. He was building a legal siege. Letters, customs, witnesses, pressure points. Make it look civilized while tightening the noose. Lila pressed her hand to her belly as a kick rolled under her palm. He'll try something inside the keep. Cyrus's head snapped toward her. Explain. He never bets on one blade. She shifted in the chair, fighting another wave in her back. He sends the obvious attack to draw eyes, then buys silence where no one looks. A guard post. A clerk. A healer. That got immediate attention. Cyrus motioned, and 2 guards moved to the doors. Healer rosters. Drug inventories. Every tincture dispensed in the last 2 days. The chief advisor hesitated. Sire, that will insult the healers. Cyrus didn't blink. If loyalty cannot survive inspection, it was never loyalty. Lila met his gaze. I need Tamsin and Rook only. No one else touches me. Not for labor checks. Not for tea. Not for anything. He nodded once. Done. The female captain stepped forward. I'll post 2 guards at your chamber and 2 at the infirmary stores. Rotating pairs. No lone watch. Cyrus added. And Joran. Lila looked up, startled. He's here? He transferred to Palace Guard last winter. Said he owed someone who taught him stitching while he was bleeding out and cursing. Cyrus's mouth flickered. He is currently cursing at my quartermaster for poor bandage folds. He also smuggled out a Thornwood stable boy at dawn. The boy crossed the river on foot, claiming he saw Alistair plant evidence in your saddlebag and feared for his fingers if he stayed silent. Despite everything, breath shook out of her that almost sounded like a laugh. A stable boy with more courage than her whole council. The king stood and offered his hand, not command, invitation. Council is adjourned. You need to move before your spine locks entirely. She looked at his hand for a beat too long, then placed hers in it. His grip was warm, calloused, and impossibly careful. By the time they reached the corridor, rain was hammering the keep windows in silver sheets. Servants flattened against the walls as they passed, eyes wide at the sight of the king escorting a smoke-stained exile whose dress still smelled faintly of burned cedar. Lila wanted to resent the glances. Instead, she focused on each step and the pressure in her lower back. The corridor torches blurred at the edges. Halfway down the second passage, she had to stop, palm braced against cool stone. Cyrus shifted in front of her, broad shoulders blocking the hall from view without crowding her. Contraction? She nodded. Can I touch you? A year ago, the question would have sounded absurd in any alpha's mouth. Here, now, it was the one thing that made her lungs unlock. Yes. Lower back. He set both hands where she guided him and pressed with steady strength, thumbs bracing either side of her spine as the pain peaked and dragged and finally eased. Lila let her forehead fall briefly against his chest. His warmth carried the scent her wolf already knew, Forge heat and wet stone and something underneath that was just him. Her wolf pushed toward it, not frantic this time, just certain. She pulled back first. Don't read into that. Wouldn't dare, he said, deadpan, then softer. You can lean on me without owing me. The words hit somewhere tender she had boarded over months ago. They resumed, slower. At the next stair landing, Joran appeared from a side hall, taller than she remembered, his old scar crossing one brow now pale. He stopped short, took in her belly, her face, Cyrus beside her, and dropped to one knee so fast he nearly slammed it on stone. Luna! He choked on the title and corrected himself. Lila, I heard. She reached down and gripped his shoulder. Stand up before your knee swells. His laugh came out wet. Still giving orders? Always. She squeezed once, then released him as another contraction gripped. Can you keep your mouth shut and your eyes open? His expression hardened into soldier focus. Yes. Cyrus nodded approval. You're on her door. Nobody enters without Tamsin, Rook, the captain, or me, not even advisors. Joran bared his teeth. Gladly, sire. They reached the sanctuary wing just off the sealed courtyard. The rebuilt nursery waited inside, constellations repainted on the ceiling, moonstone mobile turning slowly in a draft, the rocking chair with its nicked armrest exactly where hers had stood. The sight hit Lila with the same fierce ache it had before. Home replicated in less than a night by hands that expected nothing from her. And maybe that was why fear still braided through the gratitude. Kindness had always been followed by a leash. Cyrus seemed to read something of that in her face. He stopped just inside the threshold. I can wait outside. She looked from him to the cradle rail where the carved silver wolf gleamed in lamplight. No. Stay. Just not too close. He inclined his head and moved to the far side of the room, giving her space enough to breathe. Tamsin arrived moments later with Rook and two midwives, both palace women with practical braids and sleeves rolled. Checks were quick, respectful, and narrated before every touch. Lila was 5 fingers dilated, waters still trickling, not fully broken, labor progressing, but slower than the pain implied. Blood moon rises in 3 hours, Tamsin said, washing her hands. Could be before, could be after. First births like to ignore everyone's schedule. Rook laid out wrapped instruments and herb packets, each one labeled and countersigned under new guard protocol. He looked tired and offended by the implication of treachery. Good. Better offended than careless. As the healers worked, the female captain entered carrying another sealed packet. Intercepted at the outer kitchens, addressed to one of the night healers. Cyrus held out his hand. Name? Pel Nerith, she said. Second-rank infirmary healer. Off duty tonight, but present in stores an hour ago. Rook frowned. Pel requested moonwort concentrate this morning, said it was for a seizure case. Tamsin went still. There is no seizure case. Lila's pulse kicked hard. Moonwort in high dose can force contractions. Or stall them after, Tamsin said grimly. Depends what it's cut with. Cyrus broke the seal. Inside was a short note and a purse that clinked heavy. 2 silver bars and 10 crown marks in mixed coin. The note read, During blood moon, administer full draft to Windrider once pains peak. Delay royal midwives as needed. Escort team will retrieve mother and child by North Postern at 3rd bell. Payment doubled on delivery. No signature. Just a pressed thorn petal caught in wax. The room changed temperature. Joran swore in a whisper from the doorway. Cyrus handed the letter to the captain. Find Pel, alive. She was already moving before he finished. 4 guards peeled off with her. Lila sat down hard on the edge of the bed as another contraction slammed through, fury slicing clean through pain. He was going to drug me and carry me out like cargo. Cyrus crouched beside her, not touching. Look at me. She did, breathing ragged. This is not on you, he said. His choice. His crime. She wanted to believe that. Part of her did. Another part still measured every room for exits and every kindness for hidden cost. If Pell had gotten close, he didn't. Cyrus's jaw flexed. And he won't. The contraction eased. Lila stared at the cradle, then back to him. He'll escalate now. He knows he's running out of time. As if summoned by the words, a horn sounded from the outer wall. One long blast, too short. Messenger incoming. Cyrus rose in one fluid motion and crossed to the door. A guard handed him a rain-soaked dispatch tube. He cracked it open, scanned, and every line of his body went harder. What? Lila asked. He passed her the parchment. By decree of territorial custom, Alistair Thornwood, acting alpha claimant of Thornwood Council, invokes public challenge at Blood Moon under archaic mate right statute. If Lila Windrider fails to appear and denounce claim before assembled packs, claimant may petition immediate custody of female and issue foster claim over unborn heir pending purification review. Witnesses listed: Garen of Blackroot, Velk of Pine Hollow, Sorn of Red Claw, 6 minor pack proxies. Time: moonrise. Below that, in cramped addendum ink, Border Scouts confirm Thornwood force now 92 and increasing. Camped within challenge distance of Duskwalker South Field. No breach yet. Fire pits lit. Lila's fingers tightened until the parchment crumpled. He timed it with my labor, she said. If I can't stand there and speak, he wins by default. Tamsin's face had gone pale. You may be in transition by moonrise. Or not, Rook said, though he sounded unconvinced. Cyrus took the page from Lila and set it aside with surgical calm that fooled no one in the room. We can refuse the archaic statute. I can void it as predatory law under Sanctuary Clause. She looked up sharply. And prove every word he's spreading about royal overreach. He'll call me hidden behind your crown because I can't speak for myself. I don't care what he calls me. I do, she snapped, then winced at another tightening across her belly. Because this doesn't end with us. If I disappear behind force, the next woman won't get a hearing at all. Silence held for a beat. Rain hammered the windows. Somewhere far below, another horn answered the first. Cyrus exhaled slowly. Then we prepare the dais. Tamsin stepped in, practical even through fear. If she goes, she does not stand alone. I want a birthing team at the field edge. Heated water, linens, hemostatic packs. If labor turns, we move immediately. Approved, Cyrus said. Lila pushed to her feet and nearly folded when pain speared down her thighs. Cyrus caught her elbow, waited until she nodded before steadying more of her weight. Listen to me, he said low, fierce enough that her wolf stilled to hear him. You owe no performance of strength to be worthy of protection. Her eyes burned. I know. I'm still going. A knock, then the female captain returned, rain dripping from her cloak hem, jaw tight. Pelnareth is in custody. Tried to leave through ash stores with packed satchel. We found moonwort concentrate, sleeping poppy, and a signed token from Thornwood Trade Factor. Signed? Cyrus asked. She held up a small bone token etched with Alistair's private thorn knot and half charred at one edge. Enough to hang him twice. Lila closed her eyes briefly, both vindicated and sick. He planned this long before today. Cyrus's voice dropped into iron. Prepare a second record table. Tonight, every piece enters evidence before witnesses. The captain nodded. Also, sire, Thornwood sent a spoken message through the Challenge Herald. Say it. She looked to Lila first, as if asking permission to wound. Lila nodded once. The captain recited, flat and exact. Tell Lila Windrider she may come willingly under moonlight or be carried after. Either way, what is mine returns to hand. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Cyrus did something that changed the temperature of the room. He turned from them all, braced both hands on the window ledge, and spoke in a voice stripped of every careful thing she had heard from him so far. "Captain, assemble a strike unit. I ride to the south field, and I end this man before he draws another breath." It was not performance. Gold flooded his irises entirely, his shoulders swelled with half-shift, and the stone ledge cracked under his grip. For the first time, Lila saw the butcher of traitors, the breaker of rebellions, and her wolf flinched. Not from danger to herself, from the recognition that this man could make Alistair vanish and feel righteous doing it, and that some part of her wanted him to. "No," she said. He turned, and she saw the effort it cost him to hold the shift back. His voice came out guttural, barely human. "He threatened to carry you. And if you ride out and kill him, every pack calls it execution, not justice. Every she-wolf after me gets told the king solved it with teeth, not law." Her hands shook, but her voice held. "You said truth first. Mine. Yours. The courts. Did you mean it, or only when it's easy?" The gold receded slowly, like tide pulling from rock. His breathing was ragged. He looked at his hands on the cracked ledge and seemed shaken by what he had nearly done. "I meant it," he said, rough, "but mercy is harder than killing. My mother told me that, and I have spent 20 years proving her wrong." The room exhaled. The captain quietly stood down the strike order she had already begun assembling. Lila's heart hammered, not because she feared him now, but because she had just seen the fault line in him that made everything else real. Then she straightened, one hand cradling the underside of her belly, the other gripping the bedpost until her knuckles blanched. Her voice came out hoarse, but steady. "Have the scribes record my answer." Cyrus's gaze locked on hers, chastened, fierce, and fully present. She spoke to the room, to the guards, to the storm, to the male waiting outside with chains wrapped in law. "I am not his hand's return. I am not contested property. I will meet him on the moonstone dais, and I will denounce him where every pack can hear." Another contraction hit, brutal and deep, stealing her breath mid-sentence. Fluid ran warm down her inner thigh in a sudden rush this time, unmistakable, pooling dark against the hem of her smoke-stiff dress. Tamsin moved instantly. Waters fully broken. Rook checked, curse already on his lips. Fast progression, very fast. Outside, the third horn sounded. Long, urgent, summoning witnesses to the blood moon field. Cyrus was at her side before the echo died, arm braced behind her back as her knees buckled. "Lila." She clung to his sleeve, teeth bared against pain. "Don't you dare cancel it." His face was thunder and fear and something rawer than either. "Then we go now." The moon had not yet risen, the challenge fire pits were already burning, Alistair's wolves were massed beyond the south wall, and Lila Windrider was in active, accelerating labor as the keep rushed to move a birthing mother to a public trial where one missed breath could cost her child, her voice, and the law itself. Lila barely registered the sprint through torchlit corridors, only the grip of Cyrus at her back and the female captain barking orders ahead of them. The keep opened in shards of sound, boots, horns, rain, the iron rattle of gates. By the time they reached the blood moon field, the storm had thinned to a cold mist, and the challenge fire pits burned in a ring around the moonstone dais. Beyond the ward line, Thornwood wolves packed shoulder to shoulder, more than 90 now, eyes reflecting flame. Alistair stood at their front in black leather, silver thorns on his cuffs, smiling like a host welcoming guests. A contraction hit so hard Lila saw white. Tamsin and Rook moved in instantly, but she waved them off and climbed the first dais step herself. Her soaked hem dragged, her dress still smelled of burned cedar. When she reached center stone, she planted one hand under her belly and lifted the other toward the oath blade stand. "Lila Windrider appears," the chief scribe shouted. "Challenge recognized." Alistair bowed with theatrical grief. You look unwell, little moon. Withdraw now. I'll take you home before this gets uglier. Cyrus did not answer for her. He stood at the dais edge, every line of him taut and leashed by choice, gaze burning on her face. That restraint bought her one breath, then another. She faced the assembled packs and forced her voice through pain. I denounce Alistair Thornwood's claim in full. He is not my mate. My bond mark faded months ago when I rejected him. He forged letters in my name, burned my nursery, and sought custody through cleansing exile. Murmurs rolled across Blackroot, Pine Hollow, Red Claw. Garin folded his arms. Velk narrowed his eyes. Sorn watched like a wolf tasting wind for weakness. Alistair lifted a parchment bundle and tossed it onto the record table. Copies, Lila thought, stomach clenching. Of course he made copies. The originals sat seized in Cyrus's archive, but Alistair had always kept duplicate leverage. 5 letters, all in her hand. 1 confession to Velk claiming the child is mine. 1 recantation to Elder Mara requesting purification. 1 map release to Stonefang. 1 confession for the Crown Archive. 1 legal memorandum invoking old mate right custody. He turned to the crowd, voice honeyed. She lies because she found a better bed with a crown attached. Some wolves laughed, uneasy and eager. Lila's knees trembled. Fluid and blood warmed her thighs. Tamsin whispered from below, "Breathe in for 4, out for 6. She obeyed, then looked straight at Mayera's proxy row. "I never use the word recant. I write withdraw. Or correct." That landed. Several scribes looked down and compared older records. Alistair's smile thinned. He changed tactics fast, stepping closer to the ward line, scent thickening with aggression. "You can't even stand. This spectacle proves incapacity. Under prior bond custom, I petition immediate protective transfer before labor crisis kills the heir." He snapped his fingers, and 2 Thornwood enforcers took a step forward. Duskwalker guards bristled, 6 spears dropping in unison. Chaos rippled. One of the minor pack proxies shouted that sanctuary was royal theft. Another yelled that Blood Moon challenge law outranked palace decree. Lila's vision tunneled with pain and fury. If she lost the room now, law would become noise. She reached for the oath blade, but Cyrus moved first, setting it into her palm hilt first, asking with his eyes before releasing. She nodded once. "I call witnesses," she said, voice hoarse but carrying. "Not rumors, witnesses." The female captain signaled, and Joran escorted a thin stable boy onto the secondary platform, cap crushed in both hands. "Name?" asked the chief scribe. "Thomas Reed, Thornwood South Stable?" the boy stammered. Alistair barked a laugh. "A child? This is your defense." Lila held Thomas's gaze. "Tell them what you saw 3 nights ago." Thomas swallowed. Acting Alpha Alistair put sealed maps in Luna Lila's saddlebag himself. Said to keep quiet or lose my fingers. Shouts erupted. Alistair roared denial, but the female captain slammed a ledger onto the table. Payment records for Thomas's silence, seized from Thornwood quartermaster chest. Garin leaned forward now, interest sharpened. Lila raised her hand before the noise could swamp testimony. Second witness, Pel Nerith. 2 royal guards brought Pel in irons, rain plastering his hair to his skull. He looked at no one. "State your role," said the scribe. "Second-rank infirmary healer," Pel muttered. "State your act." He flinched. "I accepted 2 silver bars and 10 crown marks to dose Lila Windrider with moonwort and sleeping poppy during labor, delay midwives, and release her through North Postern at 3rd Bell. Even the Thornwood line went still at that." Alistair spun, snarling at Pel. "Liar!" Pel laughed once, bitter and terrified. "You gave me your thorn token yourself." The female captain displayed the half-charred bone marker. Velk stood and demanded chain of custody records. Chief Advisor answered with crisp precision. "Seized in ash stores, witnessed by 4 guards, countersigned by Rook and Tamsin. Lila gripped her belly as another contraction bent her nearly double. She waited it out, then lifted her head. Third witness, Firewatch Scout. A scarred she-wolf from Duskwalker's south wall stepped forward, saluted the king, and addressed the packs. I tracked lamp oil from Windrider Nursery ash to Thornwood private stores. Alistair recovered enough to sneer. Circumstantial. Bought testimony. Palace Theater. He spread his arms to the crowd. Look at her, bleeding, delirious, mated to power overnight. She traded packs and calls it truth. Lila tasted copper. For one terrifying second she saw old fear. Council rings, lowered eyes, no one moving while her cradle burned. Then her daughter kicked hard, a fierce thud beneath her palm, and something in Lila locked into place. She turned to Cyrus. Do not void this by force. His jaw clenched, but he dipped his head. Your call. She faced the dais and raised the oath blade over Moonstone. Then I invoke Mother's verdict. The field inhaled as one body. Even elders from hostile packs flinched at those words. Mother's verdict was older than kings, older than mate right. A sacred blood oath no wolf could compel and no council could silence. Lila extended her left hand over the stone basin and sliced her palm cleanly. Blood struck Moonstone and flared silver. Pain lanced bright, then steadied. I, Lila Windrider, carrying life, swear before moon and witness. Alistair Thornwood forged claims against me, burned my nursery, and sought to seize me and my child by fraud. The silver light held, clear and unblackened. She lowered the blade, eyes on Alistair. Match me, or admit cowardice. His pride made the choice for him. Alistair vaulted the ward line before his own wolves could restrain him, snatched the blade, and cut his palm with a flourish. I swear, he said, smirking through blood, that Lila is mine by right, and fear only made her obedient. Moonstone flashed once violently. The mark on his forearm, where his rejected bond scar sat like old arrogance, blistered black in a spiral, flesh charring before everyone. Alistair screamed, dropped to one knee, then staggered up with a feral howl and lunged for Lila. She didn't step back. You don't get to own what you tried to burn, she said, clear and cold. Cyrus moved then, fast as stormbreak. He caught Alistair mid-lunge, twisted, and drove him onto the dais face first with a king's hold at throat and shoulder. Stone cracked under impact. Thornwood wolves surged. Duskwalker guards locked shields. Garen shouted for order. Sorn shouted for blood. Velk demanded the scribes keep writing. Lila raised her bleeding palm and roared, "Stand down!" Her voice rolled through contraction and command alike, and astonishingly, both lines paused. Cyrus kept Alistair pinned, eyes never leaving Lila as if waiting for her verdict, not his own rage. She stepped closer despite shaking legs. Read sentence authority, she ordered the chief scribe. The scribe's voice rang over fire and breathing wolves. Under moon oath exposure, false claimant forfeits rank, challenge rights, and pack custody privileges. Injured party may claim restitution terms. Lila looked at Alistair, at the male who had touched her scar like ownership while her room burned behind him. Alistair Thornwood, I strip your claim entirely. You are exiled beyond the Ash Barrens at first light. No pack protection, no challenge rights, ever again. Any wolf sheltering you defies crown and sanctuary law. Alistair spat blood and ash. You'll regret choosing him. Lila's mouth went hard. I didn't choose him. I chose myself. He chose to stand beside me. Cyrus rose with Alistair still controlled and passed him to iron-bound guards. By crown, he said, voice like winter steel, I strip you of acting alpha status pending Thornwood reconstruction under neutral oversight. He looked toward Garen, Velk, and Sorn. You three demanded lawful process. You witnessed it. Speak now, if you contest. Garin bowed first, rough and reluctant, red beard jutting. Blackroot recognizes verdict, and I'll be revising our own challenge statutes before I sleep. Velk removed his antler pins one by one and set them on the table, a scholar's gesture of surrender to evidence. Pine Hollow recognizes, we request copies of the sanctuary reforms. Sorn stood longest against it, teeth bared, hands white on the table edge, then something cracked behind his eyes, maybe the memory of his own sister's mate claim, maybe just the stink of a lost bet. Red Claw recognizes, he ground out, and chains come off our purification cells tonight. The 6 minor proxies followed suit, some pale, some furious. Elder Maera, who had surrendered herself at the south gate before moonrise begging witness protection, stepped forward in tears and confessed receiving forged letters knowingly. Heston's seal appeared on payment logs. Another contraction slammed through Lila so hard she cried out despite herself. Blood-spattered moonstone. Tamsin was on the dais before the echo faded, hands sure, voice brisk. No more speeches, she's fully in transition. Rook checked and swore. Crowning soon. Cyrus didn't hesitate, moved to sanctuary wing. Lila grabbed his tunic with surprising strength. No, the nursery. He froze one heartbeat, then nodded. The rebuilt nursery. Guard cordons shifted, shields enclosing them as they crossed the field. Behind, Alistair thrashed in irons and screamed promises of vengeance until a gag silenced him. Above, the blood moon finally breached cloud, red light washing stone as if the sky itself marked witness. They reached the rebuilt nursery with minutes to spare. It looked exactly as it had before the fire and exactly not. Same painted constellations, same rocking chair scar, same silver wolf on the cradle rail. But now ward runes glowed at every beam, and 2 midwives stood ready under royal oath. Lila labored like battle, sweat-soaking smoke-stiff cloth, braid unraveling, fingers bruising Cyrus's hand. He stayed at her shoulder, silent unless she asked, counting breaths when she forgot numbers, baring his throat to her snapping wolf without flinching. At dawn's first gray edge, their daughter arrived furious and loud, tiny fists clenched, lungs perfect. Lila laughed and sobbed at once when Tamsin laid the baby on her chest. She's here, Rook said, voice thick, healthy, strong. Cyrus looked wrecked with awe, storm eyes bright, one hand hovering until Lila guided it to their daughter's back. The bond between them pulsed wild and unfinished, all open wire and heat. Hours passed in a blur of stitches, broth, clean blankets, and signed decrees sent from the doorway. By afternoon, the keep had settled into exhausted quiet. Their daughter slept in the rebuilt cradle under the Moonstone Mobile's gentle click. Lila watched her breathe, then looked up when Cyrus entered alone and shut the door softly. He stopped 3 paces away, hands visible, crown absent, gray tunic replaced by a plain black shirt rolled at the forearms. Pel Nerith is sentenced to labor service under healer supervision, no access to Moonwort. He said first, practical, giving facts before touch. Mara has surrendered all council authority and entered witness protection under archive oath. Heston is in custody awaiting trial for conspiracy and unlawful cleansing order. Sarah requested transfer to refuge care and gave sworn testimony against Thornwood rights. Bryn sent a written apology and petitioned to meet her niece when invited. Lila absorbed each name like stones set down from her spine. And Joran? Promoted, Cyrus said, faint smile, against his embarrassment. He came closer only when she opened her hand. At bedside, he knelt and bowed his head, exposing the vulnerable line of his throat to her. King surrender made intimate. Lila Windrider, he said quietly, voice roughened by things he did not hide. I want to mark you as my mate, but only if you want it now. If not now, later. If never, I stay. Her wolf went still with awe at that offering. No claim, no law, no pressure disguised as protection. Lila touched his jaw, then the pulse beating fast at his neck. Yes, she whispered. Now. But equal. His breath shook once. Equal. She shifted, wincing, and turned her shoulder to him. The junction of neck and shoulder throbbed already with bond heat, skin hypersensitive, every nerve alert. Cyrus cupped the back of her neck, warm, calloused palms steadying rather than restraining. Tell me stop at any breath, he murmured. She nodded, then said the word she had fought toward all night. Mine. His eyes flashed gold and storm. He lowered his mouth to her skin, kissed once, then bit. Gentle, precise, puncturing just enough. Pain bloomed sharp as lightning, then melted into spreading fire that was not hurt but release. Silver light flooding marrow, scars loosening, grief unhooking from bone. The room seemed to inhale with them. She felt his history pour through the bond, battlefields, iron discipline, the hollow place where his mother's death had taught him mercy was dangerous, the lonely weight of command. In return, she sent him smoke, exile, broken trust, and the fierce, stubborn core that kept riding through the night. None of it repelled him. He held it all, and the bond answered with a ringing certainty that made her eyes sting. Yours, he whispered against her marked skin. Mate. Lila made a low sound that was half sob, half growl, and fisted his shirt. Mine, she answered. Mate. Then she tugged him down, baring his throat with deliberate teeth and steady hands. Cyrus stilled instantly, total trust offered without spectacle. Lila traced the pulse there with her tongue, tasted salt and cedar, then bit hard enough to draw blood. He hissed, fingers tightening at her waist, and a second wave hit them both, pain edged with fierce pleasure, heat streaming from wound to wound until their marks throbbed in synchronized rhythm. The world narrowed to heartbeat, breath, and belonging freely given. She licked the bite clean and rested her forehead to his. Yours, she said again, softer. No hierarchy, no cages. He laughed once, broken and reverent, then gathered her carefully into his arms, mindful of every bruise. Their daughter stirred in the cradle, made a tiny, outraged squeak, and settled when Cyrus reached one hand to rock her without releasing Lila. The settled bond felt different from the initial detonation, less wildfire, more braided steel and warm hearthstone, strong because both ends chose the knot. Cyrus pressed his lips to her temple. No one burns your home again, he whispered. Lila breathed him in. Rain, cedar, iron ink, milk on her own skin, and answered against his throat mark. Then build with me, not for me. He nodded. Always. By the next moon, the decree was carved into the East Council chamber wall and copied to every territory. Obsolete mate right custody abolished, cleansing exile without trial criminalized, independent legal standing granted to unmated, rejected, and pregnant she-wolves across all packs. Sanctuary Tablet 9 gained new lines under Lila's hand, and no alpha could amend them without Crown Luna assent. That title became hers formally at Solstice, Crown Luna of Sanctuary Law, first in memory to hold maternal and judicial authority together. She accepted in plain black with her daughter on her hip, marked shoulder visible, while the court knelt to both law and life. The rebuilt nursery became the first chamber of an expanded refuge wing at Duskwalker Keep. Fines and seized stores from Alistair's allies funded heated rooms, guarded birthing suites, legal clerks, and training for healers in consent protocols. Sarah worked there under Tamsin's stern mentorship and earned trust slowly, honestly. Pel Nerith, shackled to service and watched, mixed salves for mothers he once would have endangered and learned humility the hard way. Bryn arrived months later with shaking hands and no excuses. Lila let her meet the baby in the garden, forgiveness partial but real. Joran taught new guards trauma stitching and bragged shamelessly about being corrected by Luna Windrider. Thornwood rebuilt under provisional council after Heston's conviction, and Mara's testimony unraveled the old corruption. Garin returned to Blackroot quieter than before and began revising his own challenge statutes. Velk sent scholars to copy sanctuary reforms. Even Sorn, grudging and blunt, outlawed purification chains in Red Claw after witnessing the Blood Moon Oath burn. Alistair crossed the Ash Barrens in irons and vanished into exile with no banner, no claim, and no wolf willing to risk harboring him. His name survived only in legal lessons about possession dressed as love. Lila requested that every new clerk memorize that case first before touching any sanctuary petition. Peace did not mean softness. Cyrus remained feared in war councils, the king who could shatter oak with his palm and end rebellion before breakfast. But inside their chambers he learned every boundary Lila named and followed each one without being asked. He rose for midnight feedings, paced with their daughter when storms made her cry, and sat through legal drafts while Lila nursed and argued comma placement with chief scribes. Some nights they woke from old nightmares and checked locks together. Some mornings they laughed over spilled porridge and ink on tiny fingers. They did not pretend the past vanished. They built anyway, daily in equal teeth and equal tenderness.